Thanks everybody for joining us today. You are here at the Get Legit Education series. Today's session is Required Environmental Compliance. It is Thursday, September 9th, and my name is Maggie Phillipsborn. I am the Director of Membership and Education here at the Nevada County Cannabis Alliance. We appreciate you taking the time to tune in today and educate yourself on the required environmental compliance for cannabis cultivation permitting. I'm going to start with just a few announcements to get us started off. And let's see here, let me enter this. It is our hope, obviously, that anyone interested in commercial cannabis here in Nevada County will take the time to tune in to webinars like today's and educate themselves and continue to be or become stewards of our environment and our community here in Nevada County. Our Get Legit Education series, which is run by us here at the Nevada County Cannabis Alliance, provides the preparation necessary to assist in securing a local cultivation permit and a state cultivation license. The series includes webinars, support groups, business skills trainings, and a mentor program. All of our Get Legit webinars are online, they are free of charge, and they are recorded and open to the public. Each webinar recording is available afterwards to watch online through our website. Thanks to a wonderful partnership with Nevada County Media. The Get Legit Education series is a collaborative effort with Nevada County Media, Nevada County Community Development Agency, the Nevada County Cannabis Compliance Division, the California Department of Cannabis Control, the Department of Fish and Wildlife, the Central Valley Regional Water Quality Control Board, and the Division of Water Rights. I'd like to take a moment to thank a couple of our allied industry business sponsors, Ag Natural, Gregerson Greenhouse, Vital Garden Supply, Hometown Hydroponics, Foresters Co-op, Moreland Consulting, Humboldt Seed Company, Grow Generation, Rolling Hills Bookkeeping, and SC Labs. Thank you for your continued support. If you are not familiar with the Alliance, we are a nonprofit local trade association representing the local cannabis community here in Nevada County. Our mission is threefold. It's supporting public policy initiatives through representative advocacy, providing educational opportunities, and creating spaces for connection within the industry and greater community. Some of the services that we provide to our members are a consistent voice and representation locally, as well as at the Capitol through our statewide partner, Origins Council, who does statewide advocacy. We offer our members monthly industry affair calls on regenerative farming practices, business development skills, industry affairs, market data, compliance needs, and more. We have some of our upcoming industry affairs calls on the 22nd of this month. We have one all about cannabis contracts, distribution contracts, how to look out for things for cultivators who are going into contracts with other partners in the retail supply chain. That will be with attorney Heather Burke. We have next month a industry affairs called on all about cannabis equity. Ramon Garcia will be presenting with us, who is one of the co-founders of the original Equity Group. We also have fall sessions coming up on harvesting best practices, rainwater catchment, cover cropping, and more fall and winter things coming up. We offer our members the ability to attend and listen to past recordings of all of our industry affair calls. Our buddy program, which pairs newly entering the permitting process folks with already permitted farmers, which does a basic land assessment to really get you off on the right track. We have our Slack online networking and resource hub for sharing information, local policy updates. We also offer monthly farmer-to-farmer meetups for members to connect and share resources and just continue to connect and talk to one another, as well as seasonal supply chain industry mixers when COVID allows. If you are not already a member of the Alliance, or if you are interested or have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. Some of our upcoming Get Legit webinars after this evening's. The next one we have coming up on Thursday, September 30th, same time and place. That is the Nevada County Cannabis Cultivation Permits 101. This is with all local county departments here in Nevada County. If you are interested or have questions about the local permitting process, this is a must tune into. You do have to pre-register just as you did for this evening. And then we have the State Cannabis Cultivation Licenses 101 coming up on Thursday, October 14th. That is with Lindsay Rains, who used to run the cannabis licensing at the CDFA, who now does the same at the Department of Cannabis Control. And so that will walk people through the state license application and any questions regarding the state applications. Please note, we also offer permitting support groups every Monday following these webinars. So there will be one this coming Monday from 3 to 4. These are very helpful, they're open format, and if you need more information on that, feel free to reach out to us. Stay in touch. You can reach us. You can become a member and just to keep track of what we're up to. You can follow us on social media. We're on Facebook and Instagram. We have a bi-monthly newsletter that is just chock full of information that is notable, both locally as well as in the statewide industry. And our email address is info@nccannabisalliance.org. So today we are focusing on environmental requirements, and we are very fortunate to have our 3 state environmental agencies here with us today. Just a few notes on the format of today's webinar. You will see there is both a chat feature as well as a Q&A feature. Feel free, as you are seeing the presentations, to ask questions as they go. We'll make sure that we get to all of your questions. We are going to have the California Department of Fish and Wildlife present first, followed by the Water Board and the Division of Water Rights. And I would like to introduce our presenters. And we have Mike Shun here from California Department of Fish and Wildlife, Harihar Nepal from the Central Valley Regional Water Quality Control Board, and Jonathan Pham from the Division of Water Rights. I am so grateful to all 3 of you for taking the time with us again. And just a reminder for everybody, the more questions you ask, the more useful this is for all. And so, like I said, feel free to use the chat feature as well as the Q&A feature throughout the presentations, and we will make sure to get to your questions as well as to provide follow-up contact information for each of the presenters. With that, Mike, if you are there, I can hand it off to you to get going with the California Department of Fish and Wildlife, and thank you so much.
Yeah, definitely. So let me share the presentation. All right, can you guys see it?
Yep, that looks great.
Perfect. So let me just preface this with, if you have any site-specific questions, my contact information is going to be at the end of the presentation. Feel free to reach out via text, email, give me a call for anything very site-specific. For any general questions, feel free to put it in chat, or if you don't want to ask it in chat, feel free to reach out later on as well. And I'll be here. I'm cutting out a little bit early today, so I might not be here quite till 6, but if you have anything, feel free to just send me a text or reach out in an email. All right, so I'm presenting the California Department of Fish and Wildlife permitting for cannabis cultivation. I'm Michael Shun. I'm an environmental scientist with Fish and Wildlife in the North Central region, which essentially goes over to Lake County, to Plumas, and then down to San Joaquin in Calaveras County. So with that, let us get started. So first I'm going to start off with our mission, and California Fish and Wildlife's mission is to manage California's diverse fish, wildlife, and plant resources in the habitats on which they depend for the ecological values and for their use and enjoyment by the public. So Fish and Game Code 1602 states that you have to notify CDFW before beginning any activity that may substantially divert or obstruct the natural flow of any river, stream, or lake, substantially change or use any of the material from the bed, bank, or channel of any river, stream, or lake, or if it has the potential to deposit debris, waste, or other materials containing crumbled, flaked, or ground pavement where it may pass into any river, stream, or lake. So you may ask, what is a river, stream, or lake? This would encompass perennial streams, streams that flow year-round, intermittent streams, ones that flow seasonally, maybe a couple of months out of the year, and ephemeral streams, so ones that only carry water during precipitation events. So this would be like hillside drainages, desert washes, anything like that that only has water in it for maybe even a couple days out of the year. Any of those would be considered jurisdictional under Fish and Game Code. Part of DCC's Department of Cannabis Control's licensing application process requires all applicants to either obtain a finalized lake and streambed alteration agreement or written verification that one's not required. So what does this mean? If CDFW determines that the activity that you're conducting with your cannabis cultivation operation substantially adversely affects fish and wildlife resources, you would have to get an agreement through us. But anybody who's going to be cultivating has to come through and submit a notification to Fish and Wildlife, regardless if they think they're going to be impacting anything or not, because DCC is looking for either an agreement or proof that one's not needed. So some activities that may require an agreement would be water diversions and impoundments, stream crossings, bank stabilization armoring using rock slope protection on culvert inlets and outlets, channel or lake bed modifications. So if you're going to be like dredging the bottom of a pond to increase the capacity, and that something like that would be subject to our code as well. Riparian vegetation management. So if you're going to be cutting willows, cottonwoods, oaks, anything that's growing near a stream system, stuff like that would be subject to our Fish and Game Code as well. Any in-channel maintenance. So how do you get an LSA agreement or verification that one's not required? First, you're going to go to our Fish and Wildlife website. The link is up at the top, and this is the cannabis permitting portal portion of our website. And you can see that there's a few different tabs at the bottom: permitting, enforcement, restoration, enforcement, and resources. The resources tab is very useful. It has a lot of case studies, papers that have been written, best management practices that are used by other agencies. So that's a good resource to take a look at when you decide that you want to get into cannabis cultivation. From there, if you go into the permitting portion of the web page, there is the blue link that you see towards the middle called EPIM's online permitting portal. So this is the permitting portal that you're going to utilize to submit a notification to the Department of Fish and Wildlife. You're going to have to, so on the right, that's what the website should look like. And there's the link to the left as well. And if anybody's interested in this PowerPoint, so they can have those links, feel free to reach out and they can provide those to you. But first, you're going to have to register. So once you register an account or create an account, our admin staff will unlock it for you. And once it's unlocked, you have 3 different permitting pathways, or I guess 3 different portions that you can go through to get yourself into compliance. One of which is the self-certification, one is the general agreement, and then one is the standard agreement. And we'll go into those separately. So first is the self-certification. We want a small little bit of information about the project, where it is, what you're doing, where the water source is, some maps depicting where the cultivation area is going to be. You have to answer a few questions about your project. What infrastructure are you going to be using? Do you have any construction that you have to do? The water source, is it a well? Is it municipal water? Are you getting water from an ag canal? And then from there, once you submit the notification, we will review it, and we either determine that the project qualifies. If it qualifies, then you get written verification that an LSA is not needed. If it does not qualify, you get kicked out of the self-certification process, and you have to notify under the standard or general agreement processes. With this one, there's no fee required, but let me just say, for the most part, unless you're cultivating in a warehouse with a concrete slab using municipal water or something along those lines, the majority of projects do not qualify for self-certification. With that being said, we will go, so here you can see, if you decide to try to submit a self-certification and you don't qualify, you'll get this message at the top of the screen. Okay, so next we're going to move on to the general agreement. So the general agreement is essentially for projects that have a known impact. Say you know that you're going to be replacing a culvert on the property. You've already had engineers out there come up with designs, and you're pretty much good to go other than getting the permit through us. You can apply for the general agreement. It's a pre-written agreement. It's CEQA exempt, which I'll describe later on what that means. You must comply with the terms and conditions that are written into the general agreement. There's no negotiating measures, anything like that. It's got a 5-year term. And again, there's the link that you can read through the general agreement. And again, this is only for projects with known impacts to lakes or streams. So some of the things we're looking for are project location, project description, where your water source is, a biological resource assessment if you had to conduct one, design plans for the project, property diagrams so we understand where the cultivation area is going to be, and essentially every aspect of the cultivation. Let me note that fees vary by project cost. So depending on how much the impacts to lakes and streams cost you, we have a fee schedule on our website. And if you're interested in figuring out where that is, I can provide that to you as well. Next, we're going to move to the standard agreement. And I would say the majority of cannabis cultivators are going to go this route, probably upwards of 90%, if not more. So this is based on project and site-specific conditions. So the applicant works with us to avoid, minimize, or reduce potential impacts with your project. Again, we're looking for pretty descriptive information for the project location, water source. We want detailed maps. We want to know if you're using a well, ag water, municipal water, so on and so forth. So what do you expect with the standard agreement process? So CDFW, once you submit the notification, it becomes unlocked to a scientist like myself to review it. So we might ask for additional detailed information if something was missed. We might want to come out for a site visit if project activities are close to a water course. You must comply with CEQA. Again, I'll get into that a little bit later. And then again, the fees vary by project cost. So we have the fee schedule online. Depending on how much the project costs you, our fees are slightly different. Okay, so how to help yourself. First, to avoid common delays, plan your project. So allow sufficient time. Say you want to cultivate in April, May, June, submit the notification in December, because we have a 3-month statutory timeline to where we have a 90-day window to review the project for completeness and then issue a lake and streambed agreement if needed. So we've seen it where people try to submit a notification a week before they want to get plants in the ground, and typically that's not feasible. So the more time you can provide us, the better the outcome is on both sides. We want to review permitting options online before you begin. So say you accidentally submit a general agreement notification and you don't qualify, you may have to submit a new notification. We might withdraw that one and have you resubmit under the standard agreement or self-certification. So adequate time for our review can be good to avoid any unforeseen delays on your side. So provide detailed information. We want to identify all activities associated with your cultivation. This includes activities not taking place within a lake, stream, or river. So say you're building a greenhouse 500 feet away from a stream. We still want you to submit a notification. And we still want to understand where that's taking place. We want a detailed project description. We want to know everything about the cannabis cultivation, the ins and outs. And again, some of the documents you have to provide to water boards, stuff like that. Those documents should work with us as well. So one of the issues that we commonly come across is somebody has a consultant that they're working with. The consultant submits a notification, and then you stop working with the consultant. It's good for you to have access to your account just in case we need you to go in and update anything. Otherwise, that might create unexpected delays. We want the correct fees. So if you submit the wrong fee before a scientist gets it, it's going to get kicked back to you and have you pay the appropriate fees for the site. So again, just a quick phone call could solve that potential hiccup. So we have some other environmental review. So CEQA is the California Environmental Quality Act. The nice thing about Nevada County is they did what's called a county-wide assessment. And therefore, if your project, if all the parameters of your project fit within their CEQA document, you shouldn't have to do your own CEQA. Lake County, for instance, they do individual site assessments for each project or each applicant. So it's more of a lengthy process to get up and running because you have to get CEQA approval prior to implementation of your project. And we can't issue a finalized lake and streambed agreement until CEQA has been finalized. So Nevada County makes it a little bit easier for you guys. CSA. CSA is the California Endangered Species Act. This means that if any cultivation activities may result in take of a threatened, endangered, or candidate species, a separate CSA permit, it's called an ITP, incidental take permit, might be required for the project. So this would be if there's known occurrences of, say, foothill yellow-legged frog or another listed species, and there's no way to avoid take, which is catch, capture, kill, hunt, or to do any of those, or attempt to do any of those, then you would have to go through that ITP process. Some of the other Fish and Game Code sections that we utilize when reviewing, I'm not going to go through all of these, but some of the more important ones are migratory non-game birds. So if you're going to be doing tree removal, we want to make sure that you time the tree removal outside of the nesting bird season. So just stuff like that. And if you have any specific questions about any of these, feel free to reach out. Penalties. We like to avoid this if possible. Some sites can be pretty bad, but that's why early consultation with us is very beneficial. And the fees can be pretty astronomical depending on how much stuff is going on the property. As you can see, $8,000 to $10,000 per violation per day, upwards of $20,000 to $40,000 per violation per day. So working with us early on can save you guys potential violations in the long run and maybe a lot of money if there are some stuff that could be seen as a Fish and Game Code violation on site. Compliance after permitting. So one of the major things that we want to see is having your documentation on site at all times. We don't know who's going to stop by. We don't know who's going to ask for it. But if you're able to readily provide that to whoever comes and inquires about it, it's going to be very helpful for you in the long run. So I suggest creating a little binder or a little notebook with all your documentation in it that you can readily grab and hand to us, water boards, the county, whoever might need it. We might come out for a compliance inspection at some point. So if we get maybe an inquiry from the public, a neighbor, something like that, or it's been a while since we've been out to the site, we might want to come out and just verify that you are still abiding by all the parameters that you specified in your notification. If you say you want to expand, if you have new project aspects that could create a substantial change, that would cause you to resubmit a notification to Fish and Wildlife so we can understand those new aspects of the project and then any potential environmental issues associated. Always ensure that work is being completed in accordance with your agreement. So follow those measures to the T. Make sure you're doing everything correct. If you've got a question, feel free to give us a call. We're here to help you guys. Generally, one of the best practices is to keep a clean site. Keep trash off the property. Don't have piles of soil everywhere. Just make it a well-manicured site. And you'll see in the next slide, these are properties that we don't like getting out to. Some of these sites, I'm guessing all of them were subject to violations. And you can see gas cans in the creek, you have water diversions, impoundments, just tons of trash. This is stuff we don't like to see when we get out there. So if you can avoid this, that's definitely a good thing. So to start your permit process, go to wildlife.ca.gov/cannabis. That'll provide you with all the resources you need. You can find our EPIMS online permitting portal link there. And we got additional resources under conservation/cannabis. There's my contact information. If you've got any questions, again, feel free to give me a call, send me a text, shoot me an email, whatever. So I think that is going to do it for me. I don't know if we had any questions.
That was great, Michael. Thank you so much. I have personally a quick question. Hopefully that's not too complex.
Yeah.
I believe there was new regulations, potentially or changed regulations around LSAs, and if I am thinking about that correctly, do you see that having any impact or effect here in Nevada County specifically? I know that the North Coast has a much different relationship and scenario with the fish and wildlife than we do here.
Yeah, and what changes are you, or did you hear that's going on? I don't know if I'm necessarily aware of any.
Hello, Michael.
How's it going?
Hello. I believe the changes were around by a specific date. One would need some sort of documentations for their LSAs, or if they were required to have LSAs, they needed some specific documentation. Now, I know this is impacting farmers in Mendocino and on the coast, and may not be impacting us here, but just wanted to know if you had word of anything of how it may impact us here in Nevada County.
So that might be for obtaining the annual license with DCC. I think September 1, 2020 requires a finalized lake and stream bed alteration agreement to be provided to DCC before obtaining your annual license.
Great.
I'm not 100% if they're still issuing provisionals or not, but I know to move forward with your annual license, you will need that finalized LSA or written verification that one's not needed. And that would be either in the form of a finalized lake and stream bed alteration agreement, what we call notification not required, or a no agreement needed. So any one of those 3 documents should be fine to present to DCC.
Perfect. And here in Nevada County, the majority of our farmers typically are LSAs are not required. Is that correct? Because of our topography and general area?
Yeah, correct. I would say the majority of cannabis cultivators in general end up with the notification not required determination. There are a few that end up getting lichen stream bed alterations, primarily for culvert replacements for access on the property. So somebody who was living there previously put in an undersized culvert. We want to verify that that's appropriately sized to withstand a 100-year flood event. So we might ask for an engineer to go out there and just do that verification. But typically, yeah, the majority of sites, because you have to abide by the buffer zone with the water boards, and most aspects of the project avoid lakes and streams, it makes it easier for us, and in the long run, it lowers fees for the applicant with various different agencies.
Thank you.
Yeah, definitely.
Thanks so much for that. If other folks have any questions regarding anything Michael shared with Fish and Wildlife's process, feel free to type those into the chat or in the Q&A function. And we will go ahead and keep moving. Harihar Nepal is here from the Central Valley Regional Water Quality Control Board, which Nevada County falls under their jurisdiction. And I'll just say, Michael, if you could just enter your contact information for folks into the chat feature so that anybody who needs that has it. And then Harihar, I'll hand it over to you. Thank you so much for your time again today.
Sure. It's our pleasure to be part of this educational series, and we tried to be a part of it since like last year or so, whenever you started, whoever possible to get here. Let me share my screen first, and okay. There you go. All right. Hello, good afternoon. My name is Harihar Nepal, environmental scientist with the Water Board, Regional Water Board. We've been participating this educational series outreach program with the Nevada County Cannabis Alliance since last couple of years, and it's our pleasure to be a part so that we can expose ourselves among our dischargers, cultivator, consultant, or whoever interested party. Today I will cover a lot of topic, but I will just go briefly. I will cover from very basic, from who we are to what our general order means to what you need after you apply, and all those topics, but very briefly. But if you have any specific questions, or your site specific question, or your personal interest specific questions, feel free to email or call us at our office. I will have my contact information on the chat room shortly, and on the this slide too. Or you can reach out to me through the Cannabis Alliance. So they also have my contact information, our contact information. So I will start with very basic who we are and how we fit in the whole puzzle of the cannabis licensing and permitting process. And then I will go, how you enroll with us and what are our categories, our general order define, and then I will also touch on the technical part, like what the technical document you need after you enroll, or get ready before, even you can do that before you enroll, and what are those requirements. And then I will briefly touch on the couple of scenario that what if you don't enroll with us, and probably some of you already receive our letters, but I'll just touch on those what we're trying to do, and how you're gonna avoid those kind of what if scenarios. So let's get started. The slide you're seeing here, there's our mission statement. You can read by yourself. We are water board. We are regional water board. So we are part of the Cal EPA. For those of you, if you're not aware, we are. And the Cal EPA was established way back to implement the Federal Clean Water Act in California, and then a regional board afterward established to implement the mission of the California Environmental Protection Agencies. The overall goal for us is to protect the quality of the water of the state. So, you know, either by ourselves or our other sister agencies, our main goal is to protect the quality of the water. There are 9 regional water boards just like us, and the regional water boards were established based on the watershed. So the reason I want to bring that one here, because the different watershed may have the different water quality, baseline water quality, their rainfall, the environment, their geology, their topography. So if you go from region to region, you might see slightly different requirement even under the general order. So let me show you my map. So we are on the region 5, which is the Sacramento Valley watershed. The mainly 2 river system we have is Sacramento River and San Joaquin River, and all our the requirements, all our the policy, those are based on the basin plan to protect the water of the Sacramento Valley watershed. So that might be a little different because the Nevada County is one of the counties that falls in the 2 different regions. So the small portion of the Nevada County also falls on the region 6, which is Lawton Regional Water Quality Control Board. But majority of our growers are in the region 5. So, you don't have to deal with the 2 different regions, at least in the Nevada County. Being said that, let me jump on to the how we what our permit means, and then how we fit into the whole piece of the puzzle. So one thing I do want to emphasize here, because not a lot, but at least a handful of discharger I met with has a misunderstanding or miscommunication about what our general order means. So I want to make clear here, our permit, the water board permit, doesn't allow you to grow the cannabis. So our permit is for you to prepare the land, to disturb the land, and anything you do with the land development. So it has nothing to do with the, how many plants, what kind of strain of the plants, when do you put the plants on ground, when do you harvest. Those are not covered up with our permit. So what that means is you still have to go through all the other pieces of the puzzle before you actually put the plants on ground. So our permit authorizes you to disturb the land, to develop the land, and before you do anything with the plants. So just want to make sure you understand what our permit means. And a part of our general order, the cannabis general order, also require you to comply with all the state or the local regulations. So that's the part of our requirement too. If that means, do I need a permit? So to answer that questions, you have to ask yourself what kind of cultivation you're doing and how much cultivation or how much land you're being disturbed. So if you're doing non-commercial cultivation, or if you're doing outdoor cultivation with the disturbed area, less than 1,000 square feet. So I focus here on the disturbed area because you may put 1 plant, 2 plant, 3, 4, 5, doesn't matter. If your disturbed area is 1,000 square feet or smaller, or non-commercial, then you do not need a permit from us. It's called a personal use exemption. But if you're doing any sort of the cultivation that involve any sort of the commercial activity, then you do need a permit from the water board, and move on the chain. As I said earlier, water board permit is not the only one permit you needed. So our permit is only the one piece of the puzzle you have to go through. So if you are going to if you're going for the commercial cultivation, then what kind of permit you need? So our permits are like, there are a lot of different categories and based on the threat to the water quality. So what that means is it depends upon your size. It depends upon where you're located in the natural topography, like you're in the steepy area, or you're relatively flat area, or if you're close to the water course, or how far you are from the water course. All those things determine what kind of permit you need. So I already explained the personal use. So if you are the commercial grower, then you will have two broad category. One is exempt, one is the other is a non-exempt. So exempt as the two is the indoor. If you're indoor, and so what indoor means is also a little vague. The reason I said it's vague because the different agency may have a different definition about the indoor. So for us, since we are looking for what kind of the potential threat you may create due to your cultivation to the water quality. So for us, the indoor means you need to be not only completely indoor, like a permanent roof and impermeable floor. Also, there should not be any discharge from the indoor facility to the ground. So if you have your the growing facility is connected to the let's say the community sewer system, or let's say it's connected to the tank and haul. So it depends. That's why I want to focus here. We're not focusing on your infrastructure. We're focusing on where your water will go from that building, from that facility, from that greenhouse, from that structure. So so for that reason, just being under the roof and the permeable floor doesn't make you indoor. You may trigger additional permit if you are discharging from those the facility to the ground, because our permit is not for discharge. If you need to discharge the water, then you need an additional permit. There is another exempt, even your outdoor, which is the small. If your disturbed area is smaller, we consider as less than 2,000 square feet, and then slope of less than 20% of natural gradient, we believe there is not significant threat to the water quality to the natural water course. So we give you the exempt category, even though you're outdoor. For either cases, if you're indoor exempt or outdoor exempt, you do need to apply for the permit, and then your permit will be valid for the next 5 years from the day you applied. And then we need to reevaluate your condition. So that means you have to reapply after 5 years. And if you're under the exempt category, you don't have to pay annual fee. And there are very few documents required from you, but it doesn't automatically renew after 5 years. So you reevaluate yourself, reassess yourself, your site conditions, and you have to apply after 5 years again. So let's go to what are that's just a picture, what our indoors means. And, you do need to be completely permanent roof and then semi-permeable floor. I want to give you a couple of examples here. I got an application in the Nevada County or the other counties as indoor, and then they did say they have a permanent structure. And when I go to visit the site, and I saw their floor is not completely impermeable. They have a gravel on the floor. What that means for us, any water, I know we all try to conserve the water. We all try not to waste the water, but sometimes things happen, like, the valve go bad, so it just start leaking, or some, the water system get leaked and then it just get flooded inside your facility, or let's say you wanna, thoroughly clean the whole the greenhouse, then where the water goes, that's our main concern. You can do all those things and things can happen, but what happened to the water after that even? So if you have a gravel floor, that means your water goes outside your building, underground somewhere, right? So we consider those as outdoor grow. Even though you have a hoop house or a permanent roof, if you don't have a semi-permeable floor, then just to give you an example. So let's go back where I was. So if you are, sorry, that was just an interjection there. So if you're outdoor, so those are the conditionally exempt, like indoor or outdoor. So if you're not fall under those categories, then based on your size and based on your geography and location, you could be either tier 1 or tier 2 or low, moderate, and high risks. As I said, all those risks are based on the, is there any threat to the water quality, to the natural water course? So based on those, keep it in mind, this is like tier 1 if you're smaller than 1 acre, and tier 2 if you're greater than 1 acre. Low risks, that means you're relatively flat area, and you are within the setback requirement of the water course. Next slide, I will explain you what is the setback distance. And then if you're moderate, if you're 30 to 50% slope, and then you have to obey the setback requirement. And then you are in the high risks if you are within the setback requirement of the natural water course. With all those 3 categories, or even tier 1 and tier 2, your technical documents require different, your fee will different, your annual monitoring and reporting will be different. So when you apply, be careful what you're applying for, and know your sites. So if you have a huge parcel, before you get the application, just get the general idea, where you want to cultivate, how much land you want to disturb. So all those, gather those information so that you'll be paying the correct amount of fee, and then you'll be in the correct tier and correct risk label. I have seen like you apply for, let's say, tier 2, moderate risks, and when you submit the technical document, I review it, and you see like you are only 20 or 30,000 square feet of disturbed area. So obviously you're not the tier 2, so you paid the wrong fee. So it just creates a lot of work in my end, in your end. So you have to correct your permit and all those things. So be careful, and then know where and how you're going to cultivate. So those are the main the category defined by the general water, cannabis general water. Tier 1, tier 2 based on your size, and low, moderate, and high based on your risks to the water quality. While we're talking about the risks, let's take a look on this. What is the setback distance that I was referring for all the low, medium, and high? So if you have, Michael, if you remember Michael's presentation, he just mentioned there's a different water course classification, and we go with the similar classification, class 1, class 2, class 3. So if you are on the class 1 water course category, that means generally you can tell either the water course is class 1 because it has a permanent structure, the bed bank and channel, and it flows all year around, unless it's a super dry year. It flows all year around, and it supports the riparian vegetation. So if you have that kind of water course, you need to give 150 feet buffer zone so that any nutrient or pesticide or any sort of organic or inorganic chemicals you use for your cultivation doesn't make directly into the water course. That's the buffer zone, 150, 100, or 50 feet. That's we define is the buffer zone required for your chemicals. When I say chemicals, it could be just the organic fertilizer or the organic pesticides or organic insecticides or any chemicals that could impair or impact the quality of the water in the natural water course. So those 150 feet or 100 feet or 50 feet, based on what kind of water course you have on your or near your cultivation area, those buffer zone you need to leave so that you're not impacting the water quality. What if you are close? Let's say you have the perennial water course, and you there's no way you have to be 150 feet away. So there's a two condition, and the one you have to apply for the high risk. So when you apply for the high risk category, either tier 1 or tier 2, just keep in mind that category was not created for the permanent operation. So you could be on the high risk category temporarily. What that means, during your land development time, you may have to disturb the land within the 150 feet of the natural water course. However, you have to do extra. I'll go over that. The extra, the best management practice, so that next 1 year, 2 years, or 3 years, you will stabilize the portion which is within the 150 feet of the water course, so that you can go back to the either moderate or low risk category. If that makes sense. So the high risk category were never meant to be the permanent category. You have to work through the BMPs and other the practice so that you will go back to the either moderate or the low risk category after some time. So if you cannot meet that requirement, so if you have to be permanently within the 150 feet, that's a whole different thing. That trigger a lot of other permits required for you. So that doesn't cover by our general order. Okay, so the high risk category for our general order means you will work with those disturbed area within the 150 feet of the water course, so that you will bring that, you will be follow that distance after a year or two, whatever it may take, sooner than later, so that you can go back to moderate and high risk category. All right. So those are the bulk part of what are the categories of the general order, how where you will fall. So let's take a look how you're going to apply. This is a link. I will put this link on your chat link too. This is the link or you can search in the web waterborne cannabis cultivation program, and then most likely the first hit you will get is the link page, which looks like this or similar, because we've been changing those face of the front page, so I'm not quite sure how long it will stay here. But one thing will stay, like there will be a link for the application portal when you search on that web page, and when you click on the way and there. Then you will open the, you have to register. If you never used the portal before, you have to register. And then, as Mike said before, I would encourage you to use the real email address. The reason I said that, because I have seen in the past, like, next year when it's time to do the annual monitoring report, you already forgot your email address, you already forgot your password, and then that's just you have to redo the whole thing again. So I will encourage you to do the real email address and then a real account. The other reason, moving since July of this year, last 2 months ago, we started to send a permit online only. So there will not be paper copy. So you have to check your email. Other than that, any correspondence, any announcement or any sort of reminder we'll send you through the email. So make sure you create the account with the active email, and then put those email address under the discharger contact information, section 1 or section C. So if you never used the portal before, you create the account, and then once you create the account, something looks like your application dashboard look like this, and then where you will create on the Cannabis General Water Small Irrigation Use Registration Portal. And when you click there, it will start asking a series of the questions. There are a lot of different sections, section A, B, C, D, E. Depending upon your answer of the previous section, you may or may not require to go all the way to the end. And this application does the Cannabis General Water and Small Irrigation Use Registration Portal. This is for both for us, for the land disturbance permit, as well as for the water rights, which my coworker Jonathan Pham will be following after this presentation. So this application, once you do go through all the sections, you will be done with me and him at the same time. And let me briefly explain what are those. So the section 1A is a general screening questions, like, what kind of water you are using, or, you will be indoor or outdoor, or, if you're indoor, what different scenario of the indoor you will be doing, or, so all those the screening questions. Section B has the GIS tool inbuilt on it, so that rather than freely typing the APN number, you choose from the GIS map, and then, so on and so forth. You just follow on prompt screen information, go to section C, D, and E. E is mainly, if you do require the water rights, then you go on E, and which John will explain after me. After you finish all those things, and you will receive 2 emails from us, automatic email, one with your whole application summary, and then another with what we call the NOR, notice of receipt. So if you look at the notice of receipt, it will explain, what you did during the application process. Means, what you put on the tier 1 or tier 2 or moderate or low or high risk. So it will tell you, all right, based on the information you provided us, your tier 1 low or your tier 1 high, something like that. And then it will tell you your fee, application fee, and your annual fee will be this based on your information, and how you pay those fees too. So all those information will be on the NOR. And then the other email is just a summary of your application too. Once you pay, then we will process your application. And as I said before, you will receive a permit by email, not on the paper copy as used to in the past. So make sure you check your email. The timeline, it is varied, and depending upon, if your information is not adequate for us, our staff may contact you, ask more questions. If everything is good, well, then after your payment receipt, I would say 2 to 4 weeks, you will receive another email with your permit. So once you get your permit, or once you apply, the clock start ticking. So that's why I said, even before you apply, get some idea, like, in your parcel, if you have, where, how much you want to disturb, if you need an access road, or you want to use an existing road. Like background information, keep in your mind, because the day you submit the application, the time tick for a lot of technical reports. I'll briefly go over all those reports, but I will not spend a lot of time. If you need it, if you need any help on any of those things, as always, feel free to contact us. We're here to help you. I even went like step by step on how to enroll with a lot of dischargers. So I don't mind doing that. So for for any technical documents or any report or any application process, if you need any help, always feel free to contact us. So looking at the technical reports, once you apply, your technical reports due will kick in. So within the 90 days, most of the technical document you will see here, either your tier 1 or tier 2 or any risk label, the site management plan is always due within the 90 days of your application. So what is the site management plan? I will go briefly later on. And if you're conditionally exempt, that means if you're indoor or outdoor conditionally exempt, you do not require the site management plan to submit us. You only require a site closure report, which is like if you want to know more in the business, you don't want to do cultivation anymore, you still have to go through all the termination process, but in the starting, you don't have to submit the thorough plan. If you're moderate and high risk, you need to submit the additional plan. So moderate risk, you need to submit the site erosional sediment control plan. And if you're high risk, you additional the disturbed area stabilization plan. So as you see, the name of that, the report is a technical document, is a disturbed area stabilization plan. As I said before, that plans should tell us or tell yourself that you will go back to moderate or low risk in 2 years, or next year, or 3 years, or 4 years, so depending upon how much and where you disturb within that setback requirement. So that will tell you all those information. If you are on the tier 2, and the only time I talk about the cultivation area is for the nitrogen management plan, except the nitrogen management plan for tier and rigs, water board. I don't talk about the cultivation area. So let's say your cultivation area is more than 1 acre. It's less likely happen in the Nevada County, because I don't think the county allows you to go 1 acre cultivation area. However, your disturbed area more be 1 acre. So you could be in the tier 2, but your actual cultivation area is less than 1 acre, then you don't have to do the nitrogen management plan. If your actual cultivation area is more than 1 acre, then the nitrogen management plan will trigger too. Good thing for all those technical documents now is available through the portal. So if you have, if you remember your username, password, and you can log into the portal, and then you'll submit all those technical documents via portal. So it will ask you your WDID number, and then it will pull the information from your application. So you don't have to remember, like, do I need a nitrogen management plan or not? If you go through the portal, it will tell you what document you needed. It will tell you if you only need a site management plan, or if you tell you'll need a nitrogen management plan as well. So that's the beauty of doing online. And then you don't have to send me a paper copy or anything. Even if you have a separate the site management plan prepared, you can upload through the portal too. So you can log in portal and open the technical document and submit a survey. It give you option. Do you want to upload your own document, or you just answer the template? So you'll kind of ask a series of the questions, and you just answer those questions, and at the end of the day, you'll prepare the whole plan for you. So either you can do that way, or you can upload your own document through the portal. Or as a traditional way, you can always email me. That's still okay. So I will still take that one. And if you need help, I have a template. So you don't have to use my template, but we have a template developed within our region. So you can ask me, I can send you an email with the template, and then you can just use those templates and send it back to me. The one more thing before I move forward, I want to tell you, the site management plan doesn't require any professional. You're feel free to hire the consultant, but it doesn't require to hire the consultant. However, if you're in moderate and high risk, the site erosion sediment control plan and then the disturbed area stabilization plan, those plans require prepared by the professionals. Okay. All right. So let's take a look on individually what are those, and then briefly, and then we'll go. Site management plan. Site management plan is kind of everything we want to know about your site. So everything like, like where actually the disturbance happened, how much disturbance happened, what kind of BMPs you're going to use, or if you need any, what kind of access road you have, or you're going to build one, and then how much fertilizer, nutrient you're going to use, how you're going to store those, and then how you're going to use. You're going to use on site, or you're in a pre-irrigation system, or all those details that we want to know about your site. So there is a guidance document too within our general order. Oh, by the way, our general order is free, so you can search and you can download our general order. And in fact, it's one of the requirements. You do have the site management plan and general order on site, so that for you to review whenever you need it. So one more thing I want to mention here, because a lot of people, like, once you make a site management plan, not necessarily you need to stick with it like for next 10 years or so. It is a very living document. So as the your project proceed, as you going to develop your site, you may change your plan for one reason or another. Then you can go back and change the site management plan before you implement those changes. Right? You can change the plan, but just make sure you give us an updated site management plan before you start doing the things differently than you originally told us you were going to do. So what gonna happen when I come to see your sites for one reason or another, I review your site management plan thoroughly, and when I come to your site, I want to see exactly what in my mind versus like what you have on site. So for that reason, you want to update any changes you're making in moving forward before actually change happen, and that's one of the requirement of our general order too. So if you want to disturb the more land, or if you want to add the additional access road, or you want to add, whatever it is, just update your plan before you implement and get reviewed and approved from the water board. That's one of the requirement too. Nitrogen management plan is, we also have a template for the nitrogen management plan, and you can feel free to use a template. And the other thing is the guidance documents for the nitrogen management plan is also available through the general order attachment D. And this is also something you can submit through the portal. Nitrogen management plan is basically, we're looking at what we are trying to figure out, like how much nitrogen may go from your cultivation site to the nearest water course, so that all those unintended consequences never happen to the water body next to downstream from your site. So we want to know how much nitrogen is more you could flush through the rainfall or etc. So on this plan, we want to know your daily use, monthly use, and total use of the nitrogen as a fertilizer per acre of your canopy area. That's what we're actually looking for mathematically. But it also asks you, like, how you're gonna store the fertilizer, how you do you have a secondary containment or not, and you make sure you don't expose those fertilizer to the sun, or with the rain, or all those weather conditions. So this is also very detailed plan that how you handle the nutrient as a whole. So when I say nutrient, I don't want to just say the nitrogen, the overall nutrient management plan, because I was told by a lot of people, like, no, I don't use a chemicals fertilizer. We use organic, but even organic fertilizer has a nitrogen. So any sort of nutrient you use, we want to know how you handle it, how you store it, how you use it, and how much you use it, more importantly. So those are all the part of the nitrogen management plan. As I said before, site erosion sediment control plan, this plan is only if you're moderate risk. So if you're in moderate risk, that means your disturbed area would be on the steeper area, like more than 30%. However, keep in mind, we do not permit any land disturbance if your natural gradient is more than 50%, period. So if you're less than 50% but more than 30%, then you will be in the moderate risk category, and then it will actually additional site erosion sediment control plan. As I said before, this plan required the professional design, so these plans need to be prepared by the professionals so that your disturbed area within that the natural gradient exceed more than 30% doesn't pose that much threat to the water quality. This is mainly because of the sediment, because of the slope. There could be like a lot of sediment threat to the water course. So we want this plan prepared and executed by the professionals. Disturbed area, this is another plan that require if you are high risk only. As I said before, this is prepared by the professionals, and then this need to be so the category, the high risk category should be the temporary. Once the disturbed area stabilization plan executed within year 2, 3, or 4, you should be able to go back to the lower risk category, and this is also required to be prepared by the professionals. So those are the technical documents we required, and those are the documents we required before you actually start or the development of the site. So site management plan is definitely required way before you start digging the land. So make sure that's why we have a timeline for site management plan and nitrogen management plan within the 90 days of your application. So it is not the 90 days from you receive the permit. It is 90 days from you applied. So make sure, a lot of people get confused, like, no, we never receive a permit. But like, well, then, your NOR clearly says that it is 90 days. So, and NOR also tell you, like when you apply, so you can calculate 3 months from there. Well, after that, let's if you're like, this is all the good information for you. If you're just applied, or if you're thinking to do it, thinking to apply, let's move on and talk a little bit more briefly on what you are already applied and you're already in the business. So there is a lot of different definition here. Like one of is the winterization period, which is for our reason November 15 to April 1st. So that reason within the winter period, we don't want you guys to do a lot of land development. We want you to cover all your exposed area. All the BMPs, if you're during the land development phase, all the BMPs should be implemented before November 15. If you're during the second or third year of business, you make sure there are any the stockpiles exposed before that. Make sure that all the soils are the exposed soils are covered properly. Make sure there is any nutrient or fertilizers sitting there loosely. Make sure your access road, if your access road is solely dedicated to your cultivation, then make sure the access road is closed. Make sure you don't use any heavy equipment within that period. So this is kind of like, okay, make sure before November 15, so your housekeeping, you go through the checklist, what you have, what you did in the past and what you need to be done. So everything should be done before November 15. Unless you have a special permit. If you have there's a certain, there might be one or two, scenario like you absolutely have to use a heavy equipment or, for one reason or another. Make sure you contact us, you get approval from us so that, we all work together. It's not like we're not dictating. So, if you absolutely have to use for one reason or another, let us know, we'll work with you. But in general, there should not be any activities within that period. That's the winterization. And then I normally send you a reminder email. So email, that's why I in the starting, I said, like, keep an eye on your email and use a valid email. I normally send you a reminder, hey, winter, November is coming. So, make sure this and this, all the list, you go through it and make sure it's all done. The other requirement is the annual monitoring reports. Those annual monitoring reports also differ based on your tier and risk level. And I'll just briefly show you what are those. Those annual monitoring report, you can go to your portal, you log into your portal, and then you do the annual monitoring report online. We only accept the annual monitoring report through the portal only. And it also makes it easy, when you just enter your WDID number, then the system will know, what your disturbed area, where it is it within the setback requirement or not? Is it within the more than 30% slope or not? So it's also easy for you too, and it will ask you the specific questions. And this is all the annual monitoring report is required by March 1st of the next year. So what that means for this year, cultivation season 2021, your monitoring report is required before March 1st of 2022. But that doesn't mean you have to wait till March 1st. So if you're done your cultivation, you're harvested, everything is done, taken care as required by the winterization. So you're not gonna touch the land after your harvest, and you close your the access road. So you can do that in December or January or February. You don't have to wait March 1st, but you have to do it before March 1st for the previous cultivation season. The annual monitoring report also give you the chance, although you should not be waiting at the last minute, chance, like if there are any changes on your disturbed area, if you reduce your disturbed area for next year, or if you increase your disturbed area, or whatever it is, you add additional access road, or additional storage facility for your fertilizer, there's also a chance you update those information through the annual monitoring report. But I personally encourage you to do it as soon as you know. Don't wait until last minute, like until the March 1st. So as soon as you're gonna use extra piece of property there within the same parcel, and for the next year cultivation area, and you think you're gonna develop the extra land, just to update the SMP as soon as possible. So I don't encourage you wait at the last minute, but if something happened, you forgot, and then there's a chance you update down during the annual monitoring report too. So if your low risk category is a very basic information, it's just the annual monitoring report is just confirming what you already said is still in place. So like your all the person of contact is still the same, all the phone numbers are still the same, email address is still the same, you're still in the same tier, you're still in the same risk category, and other important pieces that have you implement all the winterization measures. So those are very basic, the report you need to prepare if you are the low risk category. However, if you are the moderate and high risk category, then you have quite a bit to prepare for as a part of the annual monitoring report. So if you're moderate risk category, you do keep all those records monthly, and then you submit at the end of the year during the annual monitoring reports, like the water runoff, zero erosion control, how those erosion control measures holding up, or how your the disturbed area stabilization plan holding up. So all those records you keep every month, and in the end of the year, as a part of the annual monitoring report, if you're a moderate risk, you submit those. If you're high risk, you have quite a bit the testing you need to do too. So what's your turbidity and pH, and the frequency is depends. So if the precipitation exceeds 0.25 inch per day, or the stormwater runoff from your site is generated. So there is no specific every week, month, or day, but you have to keep on. So for that reason, the will also require you to keep the rainfall record on site. All those records are required to keep within at least for 3 years. So if you have those, and then if you have any kind of sort of flow from your sites, and if you're the high risk category, make sure you throw the meter there, get the pH and turbidity. If you are on high risk category, and it's not uncommon for us to actually to do more. So keep in mind, if you are going on that route, and if you are next to the water course, we may actually to do more testing than this, but this is a basic testing required if you are high risk category. All right, so those are all based on how you apply, what happened after you apply, what you need to do after you apply or after you start cultivating. Let's let me see a time to. Let's take a look. What if scenario? What if you are not enrolled? And this is a very good questions, right? What if? So what as a permitting section, our general practice is, and which may be familiar for some of you, to receive a letter from us as a reminder to enroll. So the one thing I do want to mention here, it's as I said in the starting, that our permit is only for the land disturbance. So our permit is not the whole pieces, it's only part of one piece, a part of the pieces of the puzzle. So you may have, let's say you have our permit and you never move forward to getting any other permit from any of the state or local government. So you still may get enforced by the other agency. You may not get enforced from us. We might want to work you to, bring you in comply and see, walk you through what you need to do, because we are not here for the enforcement. Our team is here to help you, to walk with you through the permitting process. So we may not do any sort of the enforcement action, but if you just, in one of those people like, yeah, I have a water board permit, and then you start growing, then you may get the enforcement from the other agency that beyond our the agency policy. That's why I said in the starting, the general order also require you to comply with all the local and other state agencies requirement for the cannabis. For us, how we handle, we choose the priority watershed within the Nevada County, and then we start sending a letter. Sometimes I send a letter randomly to a lot of people based on the information we have with the county or other state provided us. If they give us a list of the sites, hey, there might be people cultivating not enrolled, then we just normally friendly reminder letter, hey, this is we know you're cultivating, and this is how you come on board and you enroll with us and other agencies. So a very friendly letter. And if you ignore those letters, we have sent you a notice of violation too. And most of the time, after the notice of violation, you will contact us and we'll walk you through. We walk together to make sure you are in compliance. But in some scenario, if you even ignore those, then we hand over those sites to the enforcement side. So that's something not I handle it, our team handle it. So the enforcement group will handle through their own way. So it may go to the ugly route. It may go to all the way to the ACL, the civil liability process, and go to the environmental court. But what I want to say here is if you come us first, then it's a very easy way. I will work with you. Our team will work with you. We'll work with you and walk you with you to the legal process. So just to avoid all those enforcement actions. So you may already seen those couple of letters we send regularly now, because once or twice a year, I always send something like some 20 to sometimes 100, 120 to 20 letters at the same time, and let the people know we're here to help if you need it, and let's walk together to avoid the enforcement actions. Enforcement could be very ugly, and they may put you on the liability up to 5,000 per day of the violations based on the water code. There's a lot of water code we can cite you based on what you did and where you are. So the long story short, let's work together, avoid those enforcement actions. With say that, this is my last slide. Any questions right now, or feel free to email or call me later on for your specific questions. There's my name. I'll also write my email address on the chat box here. And yeah, send me any questions you have.
Thank you so much, Harihar. That was a wealth of information, and I really appreciate you including the reporting requirements as well as talking about those enforcement letters in there. If folks have questions about anything that Harihar just went through and the water board information, feel free to type it into the chat feature or the Q&A. And with that, we will just continue moving along. We have Jonathan Pham here from the Division of Water Rights. Thank you so much for taking the time with us.
No problem. Can you all see my screen?
Yep, looks great. Needs to be in presentation mode.
There we go. Okay, cool.
Still not in oh, there we go. Now.
Okay, that's just a delay. Sorry about that.
No worries.
All right. Thank you for your time today. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jonathan Pham. I'm an environmental scientist with the registration unit within the Division of Water Rights. So I am kind of the counterpart for Harihar. So while Harihar works on the CGO, or Cannabis General Order, I work on the Small Irrigation Use Registration, or SIUR. So if you hear the term SIUR, think of water rights, and in this case, for commercial cannabis. So I'll be presenting on the water rights portion of this presentation. All right, so here we have a diagram showing how the state water boards is involved in cannabis permitting. So once again, remember there are 2 permits required from the state water board to obtain your DCC license. Remember, DCC is the new combined organization that used to be Cal Cannabis, in addition to a few other cannabis involved agencies. But yeah, so if you hear Cal Cannabis, now it's referred to as DCC, Department of Cannabis Control. On the left side of the diagram, we have the Division of Water Quality General Order Waste Discharge Program, and Harihar just presented on that, and that's for all growers. And on the right-hand side of this diagram, we have the water rights. So this is the Division of Water Rights Small Irrigation Use Registration Program, aka the SIUR, and that is only required if you're diverting surface water for your cannabis operation. So these permits are needed to obtain your final license from the DCC. Here are some maps showing the distribution between the Division of Water Quality enrollees and the SIUR water right holders. You'll notice that the SIUR water rights are concentrated in the North Coast and just in general more of Northern California. And as we move towards the south, more operations utilize groundwater and purchased water. So that's why you don't see many blue dots towards Southern California. On the left-hand side, we have the Cannabis General Order enrollees, and they are distributed throughout the whole state. And the green dots represent outdoor grows, and the yellow dots represent indoor operations. So you see there's a little bit of a mix, but in general, it tends to be more outdoor in the North Coast, or just in the north, and a little bit more indoor as you move towards Southern California. That's just generally speaking. All right, so your next question may be, do I need a water right? So here we have a diagram showing what documentation is required based on your particular water source. So I'm going to move from the left-hand side of the screen to the right-hand side. So starting on the left-hand side, if you're diverting from a surface water source, such as a spring, creek, stream, river, any of that, for the purpose of commercial cannabis cultivation, you'll either need a cannabis SIUR, which is the blue box on the left, or another valid water right, which is the blue box kind of towards the center. And when I say other valid water rights, this refers to licensed appropriative water rights or pre-1914 water rights. These water rights can be used in place of an SIUR if they have irrigation listed as a beneficial use, and also those water rights that you're trying to use also explicitly allow for some storage. And that storage is needed for the forbearance period, which I'll touch upon a little bit later in this presentation. Moving towards the middle, you'll see towards the top of the diagram, the flow chart, you have fully contained springs. Fully contained springs are springs that do not flow off your property by surface or subsurface means. These are quite rare, but there is indeed a pathway to claim this exemptions. And we recommend people to email us if you believe that you have a fully contained spring, and so we can guide you a little bit further in that process, because this is a little bit nuanced compared to an SIUR application for just, let's say, a spring, or sorry, a stream diversion, I should say. So yeah, if you think you have a fully contained spring that doesn't flow off your property, let us know and we could tell you if you need a water right or not. All right. Moving towards the right-hand side of the diagram, we have percolating groundwater wells, water purveyors, and rainwater catchment. These three water sources are actually exempt from the SIUR water right. So you do not need an SIUR. If you have a groundwater well, you purchase your water, and I understand the case of a lot of cultivators in Nevada County, a lot of people get water from NID. So if that is indeed the case, you do not need an SIUR. However, you do need to come through the portal to obtain the documentation. So in my next point, regardless of, pardon me, regardless if you have a surface water source or an exempt source, you'll still need to submit some type of water source documentation to DCC. So if you do have a groundwater well, you would get a notice of receipt saying that you are exempt from needing a water right. And you could submit this to DCC with some other supporting documentation, such as a well completion report or a water bill if you're purchasing your water from a purveyor. And just remember that your water right, if you're trying to use a different one, has to have storage and must have irrigation listed on it. And whatever that storage is, it must be sufficient to last you through the cannabis forbearance period. All right, so once you determine whether your water source is a surface water source or not, you might have the question, what type of water right do you need? Remember, if you're cultivating for commercial purposes, you'll need an SIUR, or a small irrigation use registration water right. Other valid water rights can be used for commercial cannabis, but remember, they have to have sufficient storage to last you through your cannabis forbearance period. And then lastly, if you're cultivating 6 plants or fewer for personal use, you can get by with a small domestic use registration, since it's not commercial. There are some conditions with SIUR in the next few slides. So first, you have to comply with general conditions, CFW conditions, and cannabis policy conditions. The maximum diversion amount annually is 6.6 acre feet per year. An acre foot is roughly 325-ish thousand gallons. So that's quite a bit of water. What we find is that the vast majority of diverters or cultivators applying for small irrigation use registrations are significantly below the 6.6 acre feet cap. However, the maximum diversion rate, the maximum instantaneous diversion rate, I should say, is 10 gallons per minute. So a little bit more details on the SIUR. There is a $750 registration fee and a recurring annual fee of the same amount. What this water right permits you to do is it allows water diversions to storage during the wet season, which is defined as November 1st through March 31st. November 1st through March 31st for the diversion season. Alternatively, this imposes a forbearance period, which means no diversions during this time, and that's in the dry season, which is April 1st to October 31st, or longer depending on flows. And when I mean longer depending on flows, it's depending on current flow conditions in the stream or watershed that you're intending to divert from. So how do you know if those flows are sufficient? We actually have an online cannabis compliance gauge mapping tool. So you can actually put in your address, put in the lat long coordinates of your diversion, and you can see whether the flows are sufficient for you to divert from. Remember, this is only for intended diversions during the diversion season. So regardless if you're trying to divert, but it's the forbearance period, which is in the dry months, so that's April 1st onward all the way through October 31st. If you're in that time period, diversions are not allowed because that's just the straight forbearance period. And during the diversion season, we recommend you check these gauges every day before you divert because they can change. There are some more limitations on where we can permit these water rights. So first off, we cannot permit diversions from fully appropriated streams. These are streams in which all the water has been accounted for or allocated through more senior water rights or other court decisions. Additionally, we cannot issue diversions from wild and scenic rivers as they are protected. In addition to the CDFW in-stream flow study area, there are certain streams that are listed and we cannot issue SIURs in those regions. All right, and moving on to on-stream reservoirs. So in 2019, there were revisions to the cannabis cultivation policy to allow for on-stream reservoirs. Prior to that 2019, they were strictly prohibited. Now on-stream reservoirs are allowed. And what on-stream reservoirs are is they are ponds that collect channelized and concentrated surface flows. So if you have a creek flowing into a pond, that's considered a surface diversion because you're diverting the water from its natural path. And not only that, you're impounding it because you're storing it in that reservoir. So that needs a water right. So cultivators with pre-existing on-stream reservoirs can obtain an SIUR if the reservoir existed prior to October 1st, 2016, and if the reservoir is in the North Coast in-stream flow policy area or the AB 2121 area, the reservoir must exist prior to July 19th, 2006, if it's diverting from a class 1 or 2 stream, or October 1st, 2016, if it is on a class 3 stream. In addition to those requirements, cultivators with pre-existing on-stream reservoirs may obtain an SIUR if the State Water Board and CDFW perform a joint determination to determine whether the removal of the reservoir is less damaging than continued use of the reservoir with modifications. So there are fees for the on-stream pond SIUR. It is a specific type of SIUR, and it costs more because there's more staff involvement and staff investment of time associated with this due to the inspection and the additional analysis of the environmental impacts of said reservoir. So the initial fees for registration of an SIUR with an on-stream reservoir is $47.50, and the annual recurring fee thereafter is $1,000. All right, so this is a little bit of a new section of this presentation. I kind of want to touch upon drought because it is affecting us all throughout the state. And there may be some implications on cannabis water rights and also other water rights as well, whether it be domestic or industrial, etc. So touching upon the drought, at the end of August, roughly 90% of the state is classified as experiencing extreme or exceptional drought, according to the US Drought Monitor. So in response to these drought conditions, a declared state of emergency was established for various counties across the entire state. As a result of that, the Division of Water Rights has issued curtailment orders for certain diverters throughout the state on a watershed by watershed basis. And curtailment means to cease surface water diversions due to insufficient water supply. So in times of drought with insufficient supply, there has to be curtailments of more junior water rights, granting water to more senior water rights. So this is kind of when the water rights, traditional water rights system comes into play, and the idea of first in time, first in right. So with that in mind, portions of Nevada County, as you can see here in this hashed outline, and then here's a reference map in the center. Portions of Nevada County are within the Bay Delta watershed and may be subject to Bay Delta curtailments. For more details on this, and if you already have established water rights and you're curious if you are curtailed, first you should probably have been sent a letter in the last week or so. But if you did not, I suggest you check on the link towards the bottom of this slide. If you can't get to this link, you can also just search water rights drought, and it'll send you to a general water rights drought webpage, and then you'll see all the different watersheds that are being affected right now. All right, so going back to cannabis, here I'll introduce the Cannabis Cultivation Program Portal. Harihar introduced this in his presentation. So here is the portal homepage. You'll need to register an account using a valid email address. You can reach the portal from our cannabis program homepage or following the URL in the middle of the slide. Once again, if you just Google cannabis water rights, chances are the first link that you'll see will be the Division of Water Rights Cannabis Program page. All right, so here's just a diagram outlining the general process. Harihar did this is a similar slide, but it was in a kind of a flow chart format. But here's an overview moving from left to right. So starting from the left, first, the cultivator completes the survey, answers relevant water rights and water quality questions. So remember, this survey for the Cannabis General Order and SIUR are all in the same document, same portal. And depending on the types of, depending on your responses, will ask you more or less questions. So you may skip some sections if they aren't relevant for you. So for example, if you have a groundwater well, we're not going to ask you, water rights questions because you're going to be exempt from the water right. So let's see, go back. So yeah, answer the relevant water rights, water quality questions. After you submit the survey, notices of receipt are generated at the time of submission, and they include fee info, and if any additional documents are required. And then if you're exempt, the notice of receipt will communicate your exemption for such reasons, like I said, as a groundwater well, rain catchment, or if you're getting your water from a water purveyor such as NID. If you do need a water right, staff won't review it until fees are paid. So once fees are paid, we'll begin our review, our technical review, and it'll be reviewed by environmental scientists such as myself or some of our engineers. And if we find any inconsistencies, some missing information, or anything that we find deficient with the submission, we'll reach out to you via email to confirm or correct those deficiencies. So we find that a big, not issue, but a big drawback in terms of processing time is just lack of a good chain of communication. So I suggest people who do submit surveys and do intend to get SIURs or the general order enrollment, just to keep an eye on your inbox. That can definitely go a long ways in terms of making sure your process doesn't get held up anywhere. So once all the application deficiencies are resolved through email back and forth, in some cases we can set up phone calls and go through all these deficiencies. But once all those are all resolved, the permits can be issued, and thereafter would be ongoing compliance. So the interesting thing with the Cannabis SIUR and also the CGO or the Cannabis General Order is that they're not contingent on any other permits. So you can actually start today and apply and hopefully get your permit soon. And remember, both are needed for, it says Cal Cannabis, it should be now DCC. So instead of Cal Cannabis, that's DCC license application. So remember, both are needed. And if you don't have them, they're going to be requesting exemptions. So you'll need, for the water rights perspective, you'll either need a water right document of some sort, or your notice of receipt saying that you're exempt from a water right. All right, so towards the bottom, we have our program website. So www.waterboards.ca.gov/cannabis. Pretty simple. And in addition, we have a Twitter. That's the General Water Board's Twitter. And we also have an Instagram and Facebook page for CA Water Boards Cultivation. And we post a lot of neat information there, some press releases of news from CDFW, other agencies, and also tips. So especially if deadlines are coming up, it's always good to just be reminded of any reporting deadlines, anything you need to submit. Winterization, that's coming up. So just any tips, just all reminders. So it's just helpful. So please check those out. There's a lot of good resources. In addition to that, there will be reminders of, let's say, upcoming events, such as this webinar that may be on a more state level scale. Yeah, so there's definitely a lot of resources. As Harihar said, we don't work enforcement. I'm in registrations. So I just work on getting people through the door and helping them through. So I'll I think I've already put my phone or my contact information in the chat. I'll make sure it's there again. And then here is our contact information for our general inboxes. So the top one is water rights registrations. So we take in calls regarding small domestics, livestock stock pond uses, and cannabis. So this is the cannabisreg@waterboards.ca.gov. So feel free to email us if you have any questions about cannabis water rights. And then the second set of contact information is for the DWQ. So that's associated with water quality and any general order requirements. And the last slide I have is just contact information for all the regional boards. So depending on where you are, I understand this is specifically to Nevada County, but we just keep this here in case it's helpful for people who, have sites elsewhere as well. And with that, that is the end of my presentation. So thank you very much and appreciate your time.
Thank you so much, Jonathan. That was great. I really appreciate you adding all of the drought information in there too. I know that
Yeah, it's definitely unfortunate. I mean, but it's no surprise, but it's really unfortunate, some of the measures that we have to take this year. Like these 2 past years have been, I think, 2 of the 5 driest on record. So
yeah.
it's getting pretty severe. Yes.
Yeah, no, water and water scarcity and water conservation are all hot topics here in Nevada County, and definitely things that our membership and just the greater community are talking a lot about and keeping their eyes on. If anybody on the call has questions for either of our 3 presenters, now is definitely the time to type them into the chat or in the Q&A. As a reminder, this has been recorded and the recording will be available on our website. And I also just wanted to reiterate something that all 3 of our presenters tonight mentioned is in terms of, and something that here at the Alliance that we get a lot of questions about and hear a lot of stories about, that is a good trick to streamline things. When you are submitting applications and when you are checking your emails and looking for updates or looking for your receipts or confirmations, please make sure you are using the same email address every time. If you are working with any type of consultant who is doing applications for you, make sure that you know what email address they are submitting on your behalf and that you are checking that email address for all of your updates. If you are inquiring to any of the state agencies about your licenses, permits, etc., inquire from the email address that you put in that application. If you are using your farm or business email address and then start inquiring or reaching out, asking questions from your personal email address, that is not, it's hard to correlate that. You don't want them giving information about your permits or applications to any other email address than that which is on your applications. And so I can't sort of encourage or reiterate that enough, but really be consistent with who is communicating, what contact information is being communicated from. Jonathan, do you want to add to that?
Yeah, I definitely support that tip. And also, if possible, try to keep it on the same thread or in terms of email conversation thread, just because, I've had sites where there's just, 5 or 6 email threads going around when it all would be best suited for everyone if it was all concentrated in one. And I understand, keeping, certain private, PII separate, but if possible, try to keep it all in one conversation. So there's a log and a historical record of the discussions. It just makes it a lot smoother for all parties involved, honestly.
Yeah, absolutely. And the other thing I just want to reiterate to folks is if you are working on your permits and you are hoping to be licensed for the 2022 cultivation season, get on it. And these agencies here are a perfect place to start. All of their permit application processes that they just walked you through are absolutely required and necessary to obtain your state license. And they've all provided their contact information in the chat here. We can help you here at the Alliance. Reach out anytime. Everybody here is here to help get you through these processes and to answer whatever questions you're coming up against. And so reach out, stay in communication, check for updates with whatever agencies you are hoping to hear from. And stay on top of things. We always say to folks, whether or not you have hired professionals to help you at any stage of the way, be your project's own best advocate. You don't fall out of communication with whoever you've hired. Know what they're doing, know where you are at in your timelines, so that you know that you're never in the dark about what's going on with your project. With that, I just want to say again, thank you so much to Jonathan and Harihar and Michael for taking the time with us tonight. Again, this has been recorded. The recording will be available on our website. And also just a reminder, info@nccannabisalliance.org is where you can reach us, and reach out anytime. We are here to help, and we want to see you succeed. And we are grateful for you taking the time with all of us this evening. And I hope everybody has a great rest of the evening.
Thank you, Maggie, and thank you, everyone. As I said before, just reach out to us, whatever you have, and we'll help to help. Thank you.
Likewise. Thank
Great.
you, everyone.
Yep, thanks everybody. Have a good night.
Appreciate everybody. Thanks so much. And tune in for the next one with the county on the 30th. Have a great evening, everybody.